Brother Percival of Greenglade Abbey had been illuminating manuscripts for so long that he could paint a gilded cherub while half asleep and blindfolded. His calligraphy won prizes at county fairs. Pilgrims left him tips, and traveling minstrels even sang a ditty about the pen wizard of the West. Yet none of this cured the ache of boredom. Every day he copied the same sermons, the same tax ledgers, the same royal decrees filled with phrases like heretofore and aforementioned, while he longed to write something, anything, that did not contain the word whereas. One rainy afternoon, after completing the 800th identical copy of a treatise on proper turnip storage, Percival's quill revolted. The nib snapped. Ink splattered his cowl, the desk, and one very startled monastery cat. Instead of fetching a new quill, he stared at the mess and felt a wild idea tap on the stained glass window of his mind. What if, he murmured, words could be shorter, or little pictures? The cat, still speckled with ink, meowed in what might have been agreement or a lawsuit threat. Either way, Percival dipped a fresh quill and drew a circle. Inside the circle, he added 2 dots and a curve. A smiling face stared back at him. He had invented the smiley. Within minutes, he'd sketched an entire motley crew. A laughing face, a face streaming tears, a face with hearts for eyes, a tiny pile of steaming manure for editorial commentary, a goblet, a thumbs-up gauntlet, a tiny sword, and, to amuse the abbot, a haloed cherub face. Each took less time than writing, most esteemed and venerable lord, and they were fun. Brother Percival's next assignment was to copy a letter from King Aldrich to the Duke of Cumberforge. Halfway through, we greet thee with sincere cordiality. Percival's wrist cramped. He replaced the phrase with the smiling face. Later, instead of writing, we wish to toast our alliance. He drew a goblet beside 2 interlocking shields. At the bottom, he signed, as always, yours in faith and duty, Aldrich, but then added the haloed face for flourish. He sealed the letter, handed it to the royal courier, and thought no more of it, until 4 days later, when the abbey gates thundered open and the Duke's herald galloped across the courtyard screaming, "Is King Aldrich mocking us? Is this some secret code? What means the tiny smiling skull?" "Skull," Percival echoed. The herald thrust the letter under Percival's nose. Rain had blurred the simple smile into something ominously skeletal. In dim torchlight, it did resemble a grinning skull, especially to a duke habitually suspicious of poisons, curses, and surprise fees. Brother Percival, mortified, tried to clarify. "It is not a skull, good sir. It's a friendly visage. See, the curve is a mouth." "It looks like a threat," the herald snapped. "And what about the steaming mound? Is that dung? Does His Majesty call the Duke a dung heap? That was, a roasted pudding." The herald bolted to his horse, vowing to inform the Duke that Aldrich had called him variously a heap of manure and possibly deceased. Panic set in, as Percival realized his decorative shorthand might start a war. He hurried to the palace, arriving in time for the weekly council meeting. King Aldrich, a genial ruler with a fondness for berry pies and zero tolerance for paperwork, waved him forward. "Brother Percival, how fare the royal letters?" "Sire, about those letters," Percival explained. He unfurled a sample parchment filled with his new faces. The Chancellor squinted, while the spy master polished her spectacles. "Remarkable!" Aldrich proclaimed, delighted. "A cryptic art! The Duke will never anticipate such innovation!" "That's the problem," Percival said. "He already received one, and believes it to be a declaration of mortal insult." The Chancellor gasped. The spy master uttered an oath ordinarily reserved for battlefields and stubbed toes. Aldrich scratched his beard. We must repair this. But I rather like these. What do you call them? Icons, Percival said, improvising. Emotions in miniature. Splendid! We shall use them for all correspondence henceforth. The court scribes paled. One fainted onto a basket of wax seals. Events cascaded faster than a collapsed drawbridge. The Duke of Cumberforge, confused but charmed by Aldrich's hasty apology, sent back a parchment containing a badly drawn smiling face and what looked like a goat holding a flower. Was it a gift? A ransom demand? No one knew. Queen Rowena of Northmark, upon receiving Aldrich's alliance proposal punctuated by a face with hearts for eyes, believed the king had proposed marriage. Her knights rode south with trumpets and wedding banners before anyone corrected the error. The Guild of Ledgers in Eastbridge found a pile of dung symbols scrawled beside new tariff rates. They assumed it meant, ignore this. It's rubbish. And refused to pay taxes for an entire month. News of the royal mystery glyphs spread like gossip through a tavern. Nobles hired cryptographers, alchemists, and local children. Children allegedly understood strange symbols better to decipher messages. Street preachers declared the faces heralds of the apocalypse. Behold the weeping countenance, sign of impending floods. Merchants copied the symbols onto shop signs. Customers argued whether a goblet icon meant fine wine here or bring your own cup. A blacksmith, misreading a winking face chalked on his order form, accidentally forged 50 left-handed horseshoes. By midsummer, the country of Eldoria teetered on the brink of lyrical chaos. Brother Percival became famous and notorious. Bards hailed him as the painter of feelings, while bureaucrats cursed his inventive entrails. Yet the king persisted. Progress marches in tiny steps, or tiny faces. To prevent open revolt, Aldrich convened the Grand Council of Doodlery. Representatives from every province gathered in the palace ballroom, seated beneath banners embroidered with question marks. At the head table, Percival nervously shuffled scrolls, while 3 stern abbots glared as if he'd just replaced the 10 Commandments with stick figures dancing. Chancellor Beatrix opened the session. Esteemed delegates, we are here to ask Brother Percival to elucidate his peculiar hieroglyphs so that commerce, diplomacy, and dinner invitations may resume normal function. Gladly, Percival said. Firstly, the smiling face signifies happiness. A scribe from Riverbend raised his quill. Does the width of the smile alter intensity? And what of upward or downward tilt? Suppose I tilt the head. Does that denote sarcastic joy? That, Percival admitted, is open to interpretation. Gasps rippled through the ballroom. Open interpretation threatened everything the guild stood for. Consistency, predictability, and long, boring minutes read aloud with perfect enunciation. A brewer from Southgate waved a mug. I received this symbol. 2 tankards clinking, and assumed free ale was owed. I delivered 14 barrels to the palace, and have yet to be compensated. That was gratitude, not an order, Percival explained. That's not what my accountant decided. We're bankrupt! Arguments erupted. Farmers complained of misread crop quotas. Generals of misinterpreted troop movements. I thought the little boot meant march. And one perfumer insisted the haloed face guaranteed her soaps would sell like angel wings. Which they did not. Just when the meeting devolved into open shouting, Queen Aldith of neighboring Westmere arrived. Unannounced, she stormed down the crimson carpet, holding a parchment that displayed a string of symbols, ending with a face streaming tears of laughter. King Aldrich, is this mockery? Your messenger delivered this yesterday. It seems to ridicule our navy. Aldrich squinted. That, dear cousin, is a face indicating hearty mirth, not mockery. Over what? Percival swallowed. Over a jest about, anchor weights? Westmere, renowned for its minuscule fleet of 2 rowboats and a swan-shaped barge, was sensitive about anchors. The Queen's nostrils flared. Eldoria's spymaster reached for her concealed dagger. War, it appeared, might be sparked by nostrils and a yellow face with tears. Brother Percival leapt onto the banquet table, scattering decanters of mead. Enough, he cried. I will create an official compendium of emo icons, with definitions for every visage, vegetable, and yes, manure mound. No longer shall feelings be mistaken for insults. The hall fell silent. Even Queen Aldith paused mid-snort. King Aldrich clapped. A dictionary! Brilliant! We adore dictionaries. Proceed at once, brother. Thus began the greatest editorial endeavor since monks footnoted the Bible. Percival recruited scholars, artists, and any servant who could hold chalk. They locked themselves in the abbey's scriptorium with stacks of parchment, barrels of ink, and a crate of pies for morale. For 40 days they drew faces, ecstatic, melancholy, skeptical, smug, sheepish, bewildered, extremely bewildered, and 2 separate flavors of boredom, mild and existential. They designed symbols for animals, objects, weather, and abstract concepts like, I am listening, but secretly reconsidering my life choices. Each icon received a name, description, and usage example. Thumbs up gauntlet signifies approval, agreement, or request for additional gauntlets. Crown tumble denotes a humorous accident befalling royalty. Use with caution around actual royalty. Steaming pile expresses disgust, disapproval, or manure delivery confirmation. Crying with laughter face indicates something is hilariously funny, but be aware some audiences may assume mockery, especially if they possess only 2 boats. The finished tome, illuminated compendium of feelings and curiosities, glowed with gold leaf and 8 marginal rabbits dancing. King Aldrich declared a national holiday, Emojis Day, to celebrate the standardization of symbolic expression. Town criers recited definitions in public squares while bakers sold smile-shaped biscuits. For a moment, harmony reigned. Messages flowed swiftly, commerce resumed, and the brewer from Southgate was repaid in royal coupons featuring a tiny mug icon. Peace, alas, was short-lived. Trouble began when creative souls improvised new emojis, not in the compendium. A love-struck bard combined the hard-eyes face with a lute, inadvertently inventing serenade. A bored tax collector added eyebrows to the skeptical face, birthing archly dubious. Soon variant emojis bred like rabbits in the margins, smiling faces wearing monocles, dancing piles of manure, dragons shrugging. The common folk adored these mutations. Scholars trembled. Chancellor Beatrix convened an emergency summit. Our dictionary is obsolete already. Brother Percival updated at once. Percival, bleary-eyed, muttered something about chasing wild boars off a carousel. Translation: I'm exhausted. Meanwhile, across the channel, the kingdom of Galdoria intercepted an Eldorian pigeon, bearing a missive stuffed with faces. Their codebreakers panicked, convinced Eldoria had developed an unbreakable cipher. Gossip reached Eldoria that Galdoria was massing troops, fearing a sneak attack disguised as smiley commerce. King Aldrich, abashed, summoned Percival. We may need a diplomatic mission. Perhaps, Percival ventured, we could send a delegation to teach the emojis, thus demonstrating transparency and goodwill. Aldrich brightened. You shall lead it! Percival dreamed of a quiet life of parchment and cats, not foreign travel. Yet he bowed and soon found himself aboard the royal barge, bearing scrolls, inkpots, and heaping platters of friendship biscuits. The delegation included Sir Bors, the especially polite, Knight of Etiquette, Dame Hildegard the Loud, Ambassador of Volume and Vigor, Francis the Baker, whose biscuits spoke more eloquently than any parchment. They landed in Galdoria's port city during a festival. Confetti rained, jugglers juggled, and someone in a bear costume sold tax amnesty coupons. The Eldorians marched to the palace, presented the compendium, and performed a brief pantomime of smiling, frowning, and thumbs-upping. Galdoria's King Regulus, a stern man famous for collecting rare spoons, inspected the book. Slowly, a smile tugged his lips. "This is magnificent! We shall adopt emojis at once. My spoon catalog will finally convey subtle nuances of ladle satisfaction." Just like that, the tension evaporated. To celebrate, the two kingdoms signed the Treaty of Many Faces, sealed with a wax stamp depicting a grinning mask. Peace parties erupted on both sides of the border. Children traded emoji cards, merchants embroidered them on tunics, and rumors spread of a new board game called Feelings and Flagons. Back home, Percival returned to the Abbey a hero. A bronze statue of him, quill raised, now stood in the capital, though pigeons quickly converted it to a semantic commentary on avian digestive freedom. The monks of Greenglade, initially skeptical, discovered that emojis spiced up scripture margins. Love thy neighbor, accompanied by a smiling heart face, proved popular at sermons. Yet Percival's adventure was not quite over. One crisp autumn dawn, a foreign messenger arrived at the abbey, dressed in silk embroidered with dragons. He bowed and presented a narrow scroll of rice paper. On it were small brush strokes, symbols unlike anything Percival had devised. Tiny houses, rivers, mountains, baskets of grain. Some resembled pictographs, others were curiously abstract. At the bottom, a character captured a smiling face inside a square outline. The messenger spoke through a translator. Great scholars of the East have heard of Eldoria's faces of feeling. They send greetings and wish to share their own system, the Kokoro glyphs, mapping the heart. They hope for exchange of ideas. Brother Percival's eyes widened. New symbols, new feelings, endless possibilities. He thanked the messenger, sat at his desk, and unfolded fresh parchment. The cat, older, wiser, still harboring one ink stain, leapt onto his lap. Percival dipped his quill and copied the first Kokoro glyph beside his own smiling face. Then he drew an arrow between them. He added a waving hand, a sunrise, and for old time's sake, a tiny steaming pile, this one shaped like a question mark. He laughed. "May confusion never end, dear friend," he told the cat. "For in confusion, we find conversation, and in conversation, understanding." Outside, a church bell chimed. The kingdom hummed with the rustle of parchment and the scratch of quills, inventing, revising, complicating, always reaching for better ways to say, with pictures or words, the oldest message in the world. I am here. You are here. Let us smile together. And somewhere on a distant shore, a scholar looked at a mysterious new scroll, covered in round-eyed faces, and thought, what in heaven's name does a poo-shaped question mark mean? Thus, the glorious cycle of bafflement continued, fueled by Brother Percival's one irrefutable truth. Humanity would rather draw 1,000 goofy doodles than write heretofore ever again.